Welcome to the second episode of VSTML 2016 Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Armstrong, and joining me as always is a Canadian who is a huge distraction, so tends to get sidelined, Logan Saunders.
Good afternoon.
And the guy who tries so hard to keep his dignity intact when podcasting with us, but he's a lost cause, David Bindles.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Good morning.
Good morning. How are we, chaps?
Very, very tired, because Daylight Savings has finally caught up with me.
Oh, good. By the time this comes out, your clocks may have already changed again,
Yeah.
which makes it even more fun.
Yeah, they changed about a week and a half ago, something like that. And I wake up early for work, so I've been waking up at like 5 a.m. every morning. And this is the morning that my body decided to sleep in until the very last minute.
You don't get a beautiful, comfortable wake up like someone playing a harp next to you or anything?
No, that's a shame.
Spoilers for next episode, Saunders.
Yeah, I pieced it together. I'm like, well, I guess I know what Remy does next round.
Yeah, there may or may not be a scene of Remy playing a small harp in the next episode.
String, that's the sound of Remy playing the harp.
Needs a bit of workshopping before next episode.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And this is a particularly interesting episode in VIDM history, I would say, because the last challenge of this episode is a contender for most infamous challenge in VIDM history, for better or for worse.
I would agree with that.
It's definitely the one challenge I've heard talked about the most.
It's a challenge that has a legacy that stretches to the modern day VIDM, in that production vastly underestimated the fans for the last time with this challenge. They made it so blatantly obvious who the mole was if you pay attention, and dropped such unsubtle hints throughout this episode about it, that they are forced after this season to actually change the way that they hide clues.
Yeah, did we talk about in episode 1 where you were mentioning that when they did the public suspicions for the final 3, typically, I think in any season, they never have at Final 3, no one gets suspected by more than 50% of the public. And for this season at Final 3, it was over 90%.
Yeah, I seem to remember that by the end of this season, the suspicions for the mole are ridiculously high comparatively. I will also say, on a point of what I mentioned last week, there was a pre-season episode to this season. It wasn't the one I was thinking of with someone getting eliminated in the Netherlands before they filmed, but it was instead a special called Niets is wat het lijkt, featuring 15 seasons worth of old moles and candidates talking about the best strategy to find the mole, talking about infamous things that happened in their respective seasons, and the intro is a terribly done version of Horatio, with the titles just being all the old moles in their scenes from their respective seasons.
Did they use all of the old moles?
As far as I'm aware, they used all 15 of the adult moles, yes.
Oh, they didn't interview the junior mole?
No, they didn't. It was just the adult seasons. And that makes it sound like something out of Saunders' collection, but the non-kid seasons.
Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of no children.
They just cut off a ratio like halfway through a beat when they get to the 15th mole. It's really sloppily edited. As you might have guessed, I was briefly skipping through it to see if there was anything interesting. There is, but not for this episode.
It's basically like those old documentaries they used to put on DVD special features. It's one of them for an hour, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a rough viewing.
Yeah.
It's longer than any episode of this season, I think. It's certainly longer than the first 3.
I'm sure Nico had a lot to say.
The one interesting story is that something we didn't see in El Salvador, Nicaragua, was that Patrick and Anna were having a conversation, and he'd just been given a note by production to say, due to all the rain, we're doing a replacement challenge this afternoon. And they were having coffee and chatting, and this note slipped out of his pocket. He didn't spot it, Anna didn't spot it, one of the crew members did, sort of pushed themselves between Patrick and Anna and chatted to Patrick right up to his face, whilst also stepping on this note so nobody spotted it.
That's actually not a bad cover.
And she was still on the wrong mole in the end. So previously, the mole met with Art to be well prepared before 9 of them had to find particular traits on the metro. Luckily, Klaas thought they'd be shit, and they earned money at the first opportunity. In the dunes of Barney, they ranked each other, meaning that Rop, Klaas, and Annemieke were the only ones to see their screens, and all were green, sending everyone through to episode 2. Art says it was only nerve-wracking for 3 candidates, but everyone was safe. 3 more assignments and someone will definitely be going home. The mole cannot wait, as 5 old moles will return, and for a good listener, there will be some sound advice. And the episode title is The Last Word, literally, which sounds like a clue that we've done in previous seasons for historians.
Mm.
In fact, it literally was used the next year on Hunted to hint that me and Ant were going to be on TV.
Huh.
And it is day 3 in Las Salinas. Ellie says that Rop's hair was even more stood up when he was getting his screen. Airen describes Rop as an entertainer, Ellie as bringing discipline, Anamika as very smart, Myline as asking all the questions, Tim as a rascal, Taka as the masculine power, and Cecile the fashion queen with impossible outfits. If they find structure in the group, they will be alright.
I like that all of the rest of them are like actual attributes about them, and she's like, yeah, Taka's a dude.
Yeah. Taka has big dude energy.
Yeah. He has testosterone. He is a human being.
Mm.
Art tells them that they're on salt fields, and spread out over one of the fields are 4 different types of salt: kitchen, road, mineral, and sea. They must take carts and fill them with the right salt in 45 minutes to earn a total of €2,000 for the pot. I'm going to guess we don't have many notes for this challenge.
Not really.
Kitchen salt, road salt, mineral salt, sea salt, dirty salt. I don't know.
Bath salts, don't forget bath salts.
Yeah, bath salt, yeah. Veruca salt.
Needs more chicken salt.
Interestingly, literally 10 minutes ago I was watching Hard Quiz and there was indeed a question about chicken salt on there.
Adelaide's greatest export.
It was indeed described as Adelaide's greatest export.
Huh.
I wish Adam from Masonry Season 6 was doing this challenge. I can't see, guys. I can't see, Anamika.
I was thinking about this when I was rewatching the episode yesterday. This must be a nightmare challenge for anyone involved in it, because salt is not the easiest thing to deal with at the best of times.
Mhm.
They probably had to condemn every single piece of clothing they were wearing, including shoes.
Cecile's nightmare.
Yeah, they would have been ruined by this challenge.
In addition, they got the etherdiscipline tutorial.
Yes, yes, they did. The legacy of Ellie Lust, as we've previously described, is being the queen of etherdiscipline, and this is the challenge where etherdis begins. Not with her saying it, with Cecile saying it, but she does become the queen of etherdiscipline regardless. And just for fun, there are carts that they don't need, and they're all in the way of the ones that they do. They need to learn how to switch them on the track.
Judging by just how wide the shots were and how far Tim had to run on his own to get to some of the carts and some of the salt piles, I would say that this was an impossible challenge to win with or without the mole.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. As soon as you realise it's an all or nothing challenge, they're screwed.
Yeah, because Art is making fun of them at the end, but I'm thinking, I think even if you had the best and brightest players, I don't think you succeed within 45 minutes. That was just way too much work and movement
Yeah.
and fixing the tracks and pushing the carts, and they're not all professional athletes, so I just don't think there was a scenario where they could win. I think they needed an hour solid to make this challenge work.
Yeah. It doesn't help that, once again, Taika, the professional athlete, does not do a lot of pushing in this challenge. Like, he disappears for probably 90% of it, and then only really helps out at the end.
And also, from a production point of view, it's worth contextualizing this to say this season does not have a very large maximum amount of money.
No.
It's sub 50 grand, I seem to remember. And they put, 4% of the maximum pot on an all or nothing challenge here?
Mm.
It's a very difficult challenge to win this one.
My note at the end of it was, this really had to be you earn money on a per cart basis.
Yeah.
This challenge should never have been an all or nothing challenge, because if it's a per cart basis with 45 minutes, the mole can sabotage and earn some of the blame, and the group can actually figure out a strategy. But here it's just, what are we doing here, guys? What are we really doing here?
Yeah.
Other than it looks cool. There were some cool visuals, I must say, but other than that,
It doesn't really help that on top of all the difficulty that it's very obvious to anyone who opens their eyes for even a second during this challenge, not the producers, Anamika sort of implies that the instructions are so vague that they have no idea what's going on anyway. So when you've got, a challenge that's physically impossible combined with not explaining it very well, it's no wonder that they basically got nowhere for 45 minutes.
Do you think that if they'd not done well in episode 1, that this would have been on a per cart basis?
Huh.
Because it's very opaque, Art's introduction. Art's introduction certainly implies that it's going to be up to €2,000 depending on how well you do, rather than being an all or nothing thing. He only says it's an all or nothing thing at the end of the challenge.
Well, is there even a conversation where I think it was with Taka, where he says, "Oh, do we get money for 2 carts?" And I'm thinking that it's not a good challenge design if you have contestants wondering, "Oh, do we get," if they don't even know if they qualify to earn money for the pot because of how vague it was. So not only was it vague for us, but it was vague for them.
Yeah. And then, it doesn't help that you've got the mole in there on top of that, sabotaging, and then you've got people just sort of fucking up left, right, and center.
Well, Tim says right at the beginning, "Oh, we just all started running like complete idiots."
Yeah. Well, like the first minute that we see as a challenge, you've got Tim running like an idiot, Tim stopping to yell at Ellie about how to use the walkie-talkie, Tim throwing down the shovels on the kitchen site and then running back for the cart, which leaves him without the shovels. And then Tim jumping on a cart to make it much, much slower for Remy to push. And there's 9 other contestants that are doing just as badly.
And I mean, you have Cecile here, who her priority isn't to load salt into a cart. Her priority is to keep her dignity, keep her hair neat, and keep her clothes wrinkle-free. That's what she was focused on.
Yeah, if you think back to last week's episode, we talked a lot about how basically the 2 stars of this season are Ellie and Cecile. Cecile, I think you can kind of understand why as soon as you watch this challenge. She is a massive fan of WIDM, but she's not a big fan of a lot of elements of WIDM, like, being anywhere, being outside of a building, getting clothes dirty or creased, getting her hair messed up, everything to do with, being outside of a building. Ellie, Bindles, and I discussed after last week's episode that I think Ellie is an acquired taste for a lot of this season. She's certainly the most infamous person of the season. I don't think she works as a character without someone like Tim to bounce off and take the piss out of her, basically.
Yeah.
Tim and Clace.
Yeah, she's such a blowhard that it makes everyone else a lot more fun reacting to her.
And apparently Remy is equally terrible at this challenge. Anamika just completely roasts his performance here, saying, "I know Remy is strong and he's good with the harp, but he needs to leave a wheelbarrow alone." As we see him just fumble with the cart, tip it over.
He's good with his fingers, but his hands need work.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't get ran over by one of the carts just by his own clumsiness. He would be terrible at the minecart levels in Donkey Kong Country or in Handcart Havoc. He would be falling off the course every time in Mario Party. No one would want to be his teammate in a 2 versus 2 minigame there.
So Ellie institutes etherdiscipline, as we've already said. Cecile says they're in a salt mine. What do you want? And she insists on them being on the same frequency and everyone introducing themselves. This is, I would say, the start of the one-sided feud that is Cecile versus Ellie in this season. Because I've forgotten how snarky Cecile is towards Ellie. It's very funny.
It's very funny watching everyone be snarky with Ellie. It's kind of the problem with Renaissance because everybody takes Ellie seriously, except for maybe Tigo, and Tigo's an asshole.
Obviously, everyone respects the job that Ellie's done and all that sort of stuff, but nobody takes her seriously in this game where she's just so straight down the line, blowhard about everything. It's delightful. This season wouldn't be nearly as funny without Ellie Lust in it, for a lot of the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
None more so than the last challenge of this episode.
It's just funny how with Ellie, she's just so out of place with this cast and just can't get in sync with everybody else. It's like being invited to a Wagner family reunion and her last name is Smith.
So Airen spots that there's a board in the water with sea salt, so they've got to dig that out of the water, and that's why there are Wellington boots there. Taka and Tim go running to find the other 2 piles, and they find mineral salt and road salt. Tim, however, decides to keep running to see if there's an extra pile, but there isn't. As Logan said, Remy appears to help Annemiek and Cecile, and despite being good with his hands and a heart, he almost tips the wheelbarrow. Then he does knock it over, and Cecile suspects that he's just clumsy rather than being the mole. Klaas then appears for the mineral salt group with a cart, but it's the wrong one. He brings the road salt one. They decide to put it in that cart and transfer it later. Marjolein and Taka fill the sea salt cart and bring it to the correct place, while Klaas and Rock take the road salt one to transfer to the mineral one. The time runs out as they have 2 carts correctly filled, but that's not enough, and they earn nothing of €2,000 for the challenge.
Tim just giving Art a no-star review in his confessional after.
Yeah. Tim says the sentiment was basically that they're all morons and they can't do anything right. And he agrees.
Yeah.
And that we are losers with no future in this game. Good pep talk, Art.
And you know how Ellie Lust has a reputation of getting over things and letting things go and, being a genuinely chill person?
Yeah, she's famous for it.
At dinner, she then lectures everyone on etherdiscipline again.
With forks this time.
And everyone's super receptive to it.
Yeah.
I think it helped that everyone had been probably having a few drinks, probably a few rum and cokes at dinner.
Well, to be fair, it's not the only sort of moment during that dinner that puts people in a bad light. Because you got Airen asking the waiter in perfect English about the size of the ribs, and then Klaas feeling the need to clarify, trying to work out whether it's her or the waiter that's an idiot when they don't understand each other.
In a Spanish-speaking country.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was surprised that there were no, unlike the most recent Mexico season, that there aren't any Spanish speakers in this cast.
I think Annemiek might be.
Yeah. There's definitely at least one, but I can't remember who it is.
Yeah, I think Annemiek said that she can speak Spanish in the Metro Challenge.
Yeah, she's not even chubby-faced.
No?
Doesn't have a beard.
Well, maybe. It has been 8 years at this point.
Yeah.
So it's day 4 in Santo Domingo at the Casa de Diego Colon, known as Lewis's brother. Art says that it's the most important square in Santo Domingo, and they will be watching the dancing show that's happening at the moment. And Cecile is more obsessed with how much they'll be sweating in the synthetic clothing that they're wearing.
Yeah, we get a lesson about Dominicans from her.
I know we've been telling Logan not to watch the credits, but that lady who goes woo at the start of the challenge when they're sort of doing the stock footage, travel porn sort of stuff, that's in the credits, and every time I see it, it makes me laugh, even now. Just because it's so out of place, watching all the action shots with Horatio playing, and all of a sudden just a lady in traditional costume going, woo!
I guess she's a big Ric Flair fan.
Yeah.
She's halfway to giving us the sound of Ellie Lust.
Mm.
I'm not editing that out of the intro. I'm putting my foot down on that before anyone suggests it.
Did you guys know that Dominicans generally like bright colors with lots of bling? And that it's definitely not stereotyping Dominicans at all.
Oh, God,
Right.
no. I think it's fair to say, even though this is only 8 years old at this point, this is a very different vibe of season.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good work that has gone into not stereotyping people as much as they did in 2016.
Yes, there is. It's funny because a lot of this season, they sort of play on the Caribbean island, not many people sort of vibe. There are 10 million people in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. Hispaniola is a very densely populated island.
Yeah. And a lot of this season is, beaches and cliffs and that sort of wilderness kind of thing, because you're on a tropical island doing all that sort of stuff. You don't really see a lot of people in this season after the first couple of episodes.
No. As soon as they leave Santo Domingo, you don't really see that many people.
Yeah.
So Art tells them for their challenge, they will be taking a picture with everyone on the stairs, and then everyone will leave, and they must reconstruct it. They have 5 minutes until the first photo is taken. And I think it's fair to say this challenge is chaos.
Which is exactly how Art described the previous challenge. If your goal is to create chaos and confusion, if that was your strategy, then you succeeded. Again. And half of the blame lies with Marjolein with the chaos and confusion.
Yes, she doesn't respect Remy's authority, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, she was supposed to be an observer, but then it's just question after question. redirecting everyone's focus. And I think Remy was pretty close to just screaming at her. But it's funny that Mexico had a similar challenge of, make sure everyone's arranged properly. By granted, it was a much smaller scale, a much smaller budget of just sort everybody alphabetically that you pick up on tuk-tuks. But here it's, hey, we have 100 people sitting on these steps. We're gonna remove everybody from the steps and put them in the exact order. That's a lot higher budget, a lot more ambitious compared to what we saw earlier this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Remy's put in charge, but Marjolein blabs through all of the suggestions. Rob divides the stairs into 9 blocks, which makes it much easier to remember. Marjolein doesn't get a block, but she's placed as an independent observer, as she's fanatic and sees a lot, but also a huge distraction. If she's the mole, she can't do much damage.
Why was Remy put in charge of this task? Why was Remy just elected as leader compared to everybody else? Because he's the most low-key and introvert of everyone in the cast.
I thought it was a weird choice. I get after the last couple of challenges, you kind of didn't want it to be one of the alpha males again, because basically 3 challenges in a row at this point. But surely in a challenge like this, where the easiest way to tell people apart is by their, what they're wearing and that sort of thing, surely you put Cecile in charge.
Yeah. I don't think it's an understatement to say that Cecile is probably the most successful of the 9 people doing blocks. Because she has a memory for this sort of intricate detail.
I wish there was a TV show called Cecile in Charge.
She can just sort of, tell people, you were like a banana with the expensive shoes.
Cecile is very much in the category of mole people who I would love to chat to, but think I would be very intimidated by the existence of. I think she would scare the living bejesus out of me. See also Ellie Lust. I think she'd be fascinated, but I would be scared to talk to her.
Yeah.
Every night would be a movie night massacre with Cecile.
You'd much rather be on Marjoleine's new game show, Hat or No Hat. I love that Art comes in bragging about how it's taken him 3 whole minutes to get his iPad out of his luggage so he can take the photo.
Yeah, I was going to say, Art comes back in with his quote-unquote camera, otherwise known as a tablet, like he's any old person at a gig. I know Saunders is obsessed with the idea that old people can bleat, but the best way to tell someone who is over the age of 50 is probably, how do you take pictures at a gig? Is it on an iPad?
That's so true.
Because the answer's invariably yes.
And it's like, Art can't roast the cast anymore after doing that.
No. This is very much the era of Windows sponsorship, and all of the tech in every single episode is going to be Windows of some description. I can't remember whether it's this season they do sponsor. They certainly sponsor by Oregon. There are visible Windows logos. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Surface tablet rather than an iPad, but the sentiment is still there.
Yeah,
it's still very much an old person thing.
Look, it's sponsor, Michael.
I think there's like 2 or 3 challenges later in the season that use them as well, so it's probably this season that they're sponsoring.
Yeah, I can't remember where the cut-off of the Windows sponsorship was, but it's certainly around this era of WIDM.
Yeah.
So he then takes the initial picture, and they've got 15 minutes to reconstruct it. They will earn €100 per correct step, not correct block, and if everything's correct, he will bump it up to €2,000. What do you think the mole would do in this challenge?
Pretty much what Marjolein did. Just distract and ask as many random questions as possible while everyone's trying to focus on, memorizing the steps. And I think the fact that all 10 of them were memorizing squares as opposed to steps, that is a very effective way for the mole to sabotage completely undetected. That sounds like a very moley suggestion.
Yeah, this is the second challenge in a row where they haven't necessarily learned how they earn money before they start the challenge, which is to their detriment and allows them all to thrive. And yeah, as soon as you find out it's steps, you go, well, Rob was the one who suggested squares. That's suspicious to me. So class has his group together within 3 minutes, with Tarkin not too far behind. And Rob is still missing one person, but he was looking for the wrong person and ends up finding the lone guy and making him actually be the gap fill that he needed. They finish early and Art starts checking. They get the first 2 steps correct, but not the third. And they realise the problem with squares is it's impossible to find out who was the one who messed up. And my favourite bit of the entire challenge is Ellie taking it very personally when her square was wrong.
And is it Cecile who points out saying, Ellie has screwed up every single challenge so far this season.
Yes, yes, it is.
She has never earned money. She has not, if you play Follow the Money, Ellie hasn't earned a single euro for the group.
Yeah, I mean, not to spoil the season, but as a cop, Ellie does make a good spokesperson. I think my favourite bit of this challenge is Art telling the contestants, yeah, you've got to sit down, otherwise all of those rows are incorrect as well.
He just feels bad for them at this point. He's like, just sit down there. You guys need 100 euros. Or I guess, 200 euros?
I'm sorry, the salt wasn't my fault. Here, have some free money.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the season where Art reaches his Peter Yan potential of, I'm starting to have done a lot of these seasons. These people are getting on my tits, and I'm not going to hide my contempt anymore.
Yeah.
He is very contemptuous in this season.
Another favorite part of this challenge is how this turns into a high school pep rally, because when they're reseeding all of the locals, every time they complete a step for, I don't know why, just all of the locals just start cheering. They don't even know if it's right or wrong. It's just random cheering and screaming and yelling. It's like being in high school again.
You obviously had a very different high school experience than I did.
Well, have you ever been to a pep rally in school?
Nope.
Surprisingly, we don't have those outside of North America.
Outside of North, so let's explain that one.
Please do, because the United Kingdom doesn't have any pep at all.
No.
There's no pep. It's just rally.
Yeah.
Just like once a month, we would all have to go to the gymnasium, and everybody would just have to sit up in the bleachers, and then they'd bring out the school sports teams. And for instance, I went to a school called Fulton, where one side of the gym yells full, and the other side yells ton, and it goes on like that for about, I don't know, half an hour probably. So that's just what it reminded me of just sit people in bleachers and just make them yell for no reason whatsoever. And it's like, yeah, it's like a high school pep rally.
That honestly sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I skipped out on it. Managed to skip out on every single pep rally until I was in grade 11 or grade 12. And I think I only went to one pep rally total. And after I went, because I'm like, I'll go to one pep rally while I'm in high school just to see what it's like. And I thought, yeah, I made a good call on just always going home and playing Mario Kart instead for like 20 minutes and then going back to class.
Whoop whoop, that's the sound of Logan's pep.
Rop. That's the sound of Logan's pep.
I was waiting for someone to do a ROP reference with regards to the pep rally. So they get half correct, which is 7, for a total of 700 euros of 2,000 for the challenge, 700 of 4,000 for the episode, and 1,700 of 7,000 for the season so far.
Even numbers.
Yeah, this is bliss, honestly. The fact that we're 2 episodes into a season where they haven't messed with the money, they haven't given us any pot drains, they've not annoyed me in any way with regards to the mole money. That will come, but not yet. Plain sailing at the moment.
7,000. 0,000.
Yeah. And they dance with the locals to celebrate.
I mean, the dancing does look enjoyable, but it goes on way, way too long.
Yeah. The one highlight of the dancing is obviously Cecile's face, but everything after that can be gone, to be honest.
Yeah. I think it's sort of part of the problem with the episode having 2 challenges to start with that aren't really super interesting to watch or super easy to follow.
Yeah. And then the third challenge happens.
Yeah. So they kind of put all their eggs in the third challenge basket, and then it fails.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Cecile gets the ultimate dig in at Ellie during the dancing, though, by saying, while I thought if anybody is holier than Mother Teresa, it's Ellie Lust.
I had forgotten until I rewatched this episode. There is a brilliant one-sided feud from Cecile towards Ellie. I'd forgotten how many digs she gets in during this episode, especially, but it continues next week. There is a lot of real passive aggression from Cecile Narings coming towards Ellie Lust.
Well, Ellie Lust is just such an easy target
Yeah.
because she's so different from any other WIDM contestant.
Yeah, she is so unlike anyone else who's ever been cast on this show. And this season is greater for it because she just ends up being a bit of a punching bag.
I mean, we're on episode 2, and while everyone's getting drunk and eating at a restaurant, she made everybody hold up forks pretending that they are walkie-talkies, practicing saying, "Ellie here for Rop, over."
I think you'll find they're forky-talkies.
Walkie-talkies, yes. They don't actually work, damn it.
Yeah, this entire roast of Ellie Lust that this episode ends up being is just delightful on a rewatch. So Anamika notices that people who share a room have been getting closer. Marjolaine and Ellie definitely have a pact. Tim and Taka do. She's not sure about Cecile and Airen, but her and Rock trust each other to a point. But what is trust in Vies de Mol? She proposes that they share information. She hates using the word bonshire, but she feels that they're connected.
So maybe I'll change my guess and say that this is the romantic couple. This is the couple that will eventually engage in intercourse by season's end.
You are preempting my question for the end of the episode, which is as it was last week, who's fucking Saunders?
Yeah, I think Anamika and Rob. Plenty of intercourse going on after this season is over.
Interesting. I'm still undecided as to whether I'm going to tweet out your guesses for who's fucking Saunders each week. But rest assured, I will be asking that question every single week.
Can you use the same graphic as like the suspicions graphic?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Remember, next week you've got to have 3 suspects, Logan.
Oh yeah, I should do. Yeah. Do I get a top 3?
If you're lucky, you might get a bottom 3 as well.
Just on one side of the graphic, you've got who's fucking Saunders, and then on the other side, it's who's fucking suspicious Saunders.
I may have to workshop that because we are getting my suspects as well each week, and I wasn't guessing at the time who was, to quote Saunders, engaging in intercourse by season's end.
Yeah, I think if the Forky Talkies were being involved here, I think it would be Rop here for Anamika, over, and then Anamika responds with Anamika here for Rop, under.
I would have also accepted a fucky tuckies pun.
Etherdiscipline.
Yeah, you've got to know how to use your portafuck.
You got to press the right button. Got to hold it down. Got to hold it down, Remy.
You got to turn it to 15.
He says that Anamika tries to come off as non-suspicious, but he's starting to be suspicious of her. He can still go for the bonshire and be suspicious of her. So at breakfast, a waitress appears with the envelope, which Remy snatches as soon as it's placed down. At an old monastery, a secret society meets, and they must form duos. They can form duos with someone they want to keep an eye on, or sometimes it's better to pair it with someone who you trust blindly. And the pairs end up being Airen and Remy, Taka and Tim, Anamika and Rop, Cecile and Klaas, and Ellie and Marjolaine. They are taken to the St. Francis Monastery in the evening and given a choice. They can either choose one person to go in and look around for 10 minutes, or choose to both go in for 5. If anyone stays outside, they will receive 2 yokers, but no information.
What would you do?
It depends who you paired up with, I think. Because if you're in a Taka and Tim situation where you trust each other implicitly, I think you can get away with going in for 10 minutes. If you're Ellie Lust, you go in and do not what you're meant to, which is hilarious television.
Yep.
I think if there's even a kernel of distrust, you probably just go, well, we're both going to go in then. Or I'm certainly going in. I don't really care what you do.
Yeah. I think for me, I would rather take the jokers, just sort of expecting the clue to be not as obvious as it is.
Yeah.
Because, like they say at breakfast after the challenge, they weren't going to be explicit that, oh, it's, Klaas is the mole. And then, having Ellie sort of half jokingly complain that you've ruined the surprise.
Yeah. Especially with how deeply unsubtle the episode title is this week as well.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten until I rewatched it that the episode title is The Last Word Literally, which even by esoteric WIDM title clue standards, is the least subtle thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
It's half of the problem is the fact that they drew attention to the fact that the last words here are what is inherently suspicious.
Yeah. And that's only like one of the clues that's in here. There's about 3 or 4.
And one of them actually backfires in the next episode as well, which is hilarious.
Hmm.
So Tim chooses to go in alone, leaving Taka with his yokers. And it's kind of a meet them all challenge, but not in the traditional sense. Old moles appear as projections and voices, and also they don't look anything like themselves. And they offer advice to the candidates, such as maybe it's easier to not look for the mole but the other candidates. Deduction as a strategy.
God, these like projections were
Horrifying.
yeah, like these were so horrifying they could have been on like an Australian kids TV show.
These were so horrifying, they're too scary even for Logan's videos.
Yeah.
Especially the Sri Lanka one. Like,
Oh yeah. I don't even think they put the Sri Lanka mole's eyebrows in the thing.
now we can say that the moles that appeared were from seasons 8, 12, 13, 14, and 15. The Sri Lanka one looks nothing like that mole.
No.
The only one who looks vaguely like themselves is the Iceland Spain one.
Yeah. And that is because they've got a very expressive cosmetic style, shall we say.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all about the usual things. Whoever seems the most genuine usually gains the group's trust. There's one person in the group who gains the most trust, but the game doesn't change in front of your eyes, it changes behind your back. Follow the money. The mole doesn't need advantages, all that sort of stuff. Tim tells the truth to Taka and receives a yoker in return. Cecile and Klaas reach an impasse and both go inside. She says that a yoker isn't important to her compared to the information, and they're also told to keep an eye on their mole books. The mole usually does what a candidate wouldn't, think the opposite, and you will find a mole. Anamika and Rop just send in Rop. He's told to avoid tunnel vision. A conspicuous mole is a weird mole. He doesn't give her much information, and she really wanted to see it for herself. Then we get the iconic moment of this challenge. Ellie Lust is sent in on her own and does not understand this challenge.
No.
And I'd forgotten how hilarious Ellie in this challenge is. I'd blocked out most of this challenge from my memory for fairly obvious reasons, but I'm so sad that I blocked out how funny Ellie is on this challenge.
Just sort of like completely missing the hallway of lights leading down to the big area that's all lit up with videos of the old moles playing, and instead just sort of rummage around in a garden bed, thinking, well, maybe they've hid jokers in there or something.
Yeah, she doesn't just miss the path of flaming torches. She misses the fact that the moles are basically saying, oh yeah, we're old moles and we're here to give you information.
Yeah.
It's so unsubtle what they end up having to do with Ellie. It's just like, yeah, you're not looking in the right place. You're completely defying the point of this challenge. And if you're Marjolein in this position, you would be so annoyed.
She's such an idiot. But at least Marjolein keeps both of the jokers.
Yeah. Ellie is a wonderful idiot. And as I've said many times already in these 2 episodes, she makes everything better about this season. Not necessarily for the right reasons.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, sort of, like, in addition to Ellie, you've got, on the one hand, Cecile hearing all of the information and then just conveniently forgetting to tell any of it to Klaas. And then Rop ignoring all of the information, basically telling Anamika Nitz is what it liked over and over and over again. And then Anamika giving a confessional, oh, I've got the jokers and I've got the message, which means I'm ahead of everyone. And she doesn't realise that's not what they were saying at all.
Yes. She didn't understand the sentiment of nothing is what it seems.
Yeah.
And the final pair is Airen and Remy. Remy goes inside and leaves Airen outside. He's told you'll be cheated and manipulated by the mole, blinded by the hunt. Knowledge is power. Money seems unimportant, but it's not. Do not rely on anyone else. And he proposes a trade in exchange for a yoker, and she agrees if he tells her everything. So it's day 5, and Remy is already interrogating at breakfast. Not everyone tells the truth about what they saw and did. And Myline says she's glad the group gave her information because Ellie didn't. It is now time for the test. 20 questions about the identity and actions of the mole. Whoever knows least goes home except for the mole who can never go home. Airen, Anamika, Remy, Rop, Tim, and Taka have a yoker each, and Myline has 2. And their test takes place at the Museum of Modern Art, which isn't Art's new title now he's left hosting WIDM. I do have a question before we actually get into the test, which is, this era of WIDM is so obsessed with modern art museums. Why?
No.
I was about to say, this feels like the 10 millionth execution that's taken place at an art museum.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that the El Salvador, Nicaragua one was at a museum, and I think that was the Museum of Modern Art in El Salvador as well. It's really weird.
Yeah. And they do a challenge at a museum in Sri Lanka. There's one in the junior season. At least one. Probably 2 or 3. Did they do one in Hong Kong? I feel like one of the eliminations in Hong Kong was that one. There was the walled city. There was the market where they're all sitting on that tiny little table. There was the dock.
I can picture Afran Corsius sitting in the foyer of an art museum, finding out if she's got eliminated or not.
Yeah, but is that because it actually happened, or just because you want to picture her sitting in a museum?
She is above the Afran Corsius line, remember now, so she probably does love a museum.
Yeah.
It is a prerequisite of being an old person.
I wonder if she can bleat.
Maybe you should tweet her and ask her.
Just be like that one Twitter dude who sort of asks every celebrity if they have a favourite cheese.
Yeah. Or the people who ask any survivor in an AMA what they think about fan favourite Amanda Kimmel. Including, I believe, Amanda Kimmel herself.
No wonder she quit the Survivor community.
Yeah.
She gone.
So Ellie says that it's best if the mole makes a mistake. You have to be patient and wait for them to slip up. Tim is playing his yoker and spreading over 4 people. He says it's wise to save it, but he lives for today. Remy is on Anamika's list now. He was quiet initially, but now he's at the forefront of her mind. Remy is playing the game within a game, working out who isn't the mole as well as who is. He's crossed off 4 people, Klaas, Anamika, Airen, and himself, and he plays his yoker. Airen says she's in 2 minds. She wants to spread, but is too focused even by question 8. Cecile suspects Airen. They've spent a few nights together, and she can't get a read on her. It could be Klaas because he's a bit too good to be true. He's a goody 2-shoes. Klaas is spreading over Tim, Airen, and Myline. Ellie, Anamika, and Rop are Myline suspects, and she plays 1 yoker. Rop is very mysterious to Taka. He hasn't found the real Rop. And Rop is spreading over 4 people and answering 5 questions on each, hoping he's done enough. He plays his yoker. Art repeats himself from the last test and says you don't want to be the first to go. Of course, they've seen more than the last time he said it. It could all be over for them in just a few minutes. You may think that it's too soon, but the mole says that it's about time. Myline is the only person to get a green screen before Airen gets the first red of the season.
I just wrote in my notes, there goes my prime suspect, LOL.
Yeah.
And she just sits there until Art has to tell her to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so awkward. She just sits there forever. Like she just stares into space, like waiting for, and then Art doesn't know what to do either. He's just watching Airen just sit there because she's not even talking to anybody. She's just sitting there, just like catatonic almost. And Art says, "You can say goodbye now, Airen."
I think she was just sort of expecting everybody else to leave around her.
Or give her like they all just swarm her with hugs, or more cues or production to jump in and be like, okay, now's the time to stand up. Instead, it's just Art saying, "There's no cue to this, Airen. You just once you're executed, you say quick goodbyes, and then you get your bag." And Art's like, "Yeah, you can say goodbye, Airen. Just you don't have to sit there and stare and have a staring contest with me. Staring contest does not earn you a Topito."
I seem to remember as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bindles, but I think Airen was the one saved by the episode 1 twist as well.
Don't remember, but it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it would have surprised her.
Yeah, I think they said that in the reunion that actually Airen would have gone home anyway in episode 1, had that twist not happened for her. And she was she one of the ones who was vulnerable as well? If Art had picked the green one, I think she actually would have gone home.
Possibly. And then they have to work out how to stick a non-elimination in again.
So Remy was shocked. They were going in the same direction and shared a lot. Could he be the next to fall? Art tells her that she was so into the game and could have made it to the finale, but she had no idea who the mole was. She didn't feel good about the test, and she wishes she could play a bit longer.
I love that Art's like, you could have been a finalist, and she's like, no, I didn't have a clue. Not even the Jokers would have helped.
Which is so refreshing to see, because there are so many times in WIDM and the mole in general where somebody goes home like first, second, or third, and they say, "Oh, I know who the mole is now," and the host is just stuck there saying, "Oh, really? Do you?" And the person says, "Yeah, I definitely know who it is now. I can't believe I spread on the wrong people, but now I know who it is." Here we have Airen saying, "No, I was fucked from day one. I was on borrowed time."
And if she was fucked from day one, maybe she's a candidate for Who's Fucking Saunders.
And wait, Craw, maybe she gets with Remy. I could see that. Maybe she likes harp players.
She lets him pluck her strings.
Maybe she likes being fingered.
Subtle, Bindles. Subtle. So next time, they cash in thirds of bills. It's time for a laser game with drones, even though they're technically quadcopters, as we will mention next week. Cecile's got her tight pants on, and one person has power over the test, with a chance for the mole to cost them a lot of money. So, 3 questions remaining. 1,
Ooh.
who are you locking in as fucking Saunders? Who's fucking Saunders?
Okay, so who did I say was number one? Who's the coalition? Anamika and Rop?
Yep.
Yeah, I just have a tough time picturing that. It's like Anamika and Rop, because Rop is like very close to the name of Hagrid's brother from Harry Potter.
To be fair, I think there's a reason you have a tough time imagining Anamika and Rob fucking.
Oh, I see.
I mean, I didn't want to spoil it, Bindles, but yeah, there is a reason that probably they wouldn't be the ones fucking.
Okay, I'll switch it to Anamika.
So your suspicions are going great, Saunders.
Well, get all my bad suspicions out of the way early.
Yeah, week 1, your number one suspect is the person who goes home first. And week 2, you managed to hit one of the few landmines for the hit new feature, Who's Fucking Saunders?
Okay, so Anamika and...
We should just do Who's Fucking Saunders every season, even if it's nobody.
Yeah, just make it up.
I'm so glad we included this. I wasn't sure whether to mention it or not, but God, I'm glad I did.
So, if only we did this during Renaissance. Did you know, Saunders, during Renaissance there's a couple? I don't know, maybe you're Rowan and Nikki? I really don't know on this, guys. Let's see, my suspect list: Anamika and Remy in the top slot then. Or no, Anamika and Tim. Anamika and Tim. I'll keep that as number one.
So you're locking in Anamika and Tim this week. Interesting.
Yeah, Anamika and Tim as number one. Number two, let's go with Airen and...
You don't have to do a suspect list for Who's Fucking. I will just accept your first answer.
What? But that's... I don't get any points if it's my second or third.
No.
No?
No, every week is just one suspect for Who's Fucking Saunders.
Yeah.
What about two? Can we
compromise
that?
You don't get to play a doubler.
We can't compromise on 2 because I am still going to have to come up with the graphics for this. Give me a chance here. Question.
All right. Okay, what's the second question?
Question number 2. What's your suspect list?
Let's see. So Airen was my top suspect for both that... Or no, second suspect for episode 2. Okay. I didn't completely humiliate myself there. Just 1 point away from doing so. So Klaus in number 1 spot, Remy number 2.
Why do you suspect Klaus?
Just he's just looks suspicious to me. They're not drawing enough attention to him. It's like middle of the road where he just doesn't seem like he's being helpful. And it still weirds me out that he was the only one not included in the opening challenge. Like they didn't. I feel like that could be some sort of clue.
Interesting.
Wireline number 3, Rup number 4, Cecile number 5, Taka 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 number 6, Tim number 7, Anamika number 8, and Ellie Lust in 9. Do we even bother including Ellie? I know she's not the mole.
You don't have to, but it's kind of fun if you do.
Yeah, let's just drop Ellie. I know she doesn't win. And I know she's not the mole.
Yeah, I think when we've done previous historians with people who you know aren't the mole, you just haven't included them.
Yeah. Give myself a fighting chance.
And final question from the suspect list for the bonus 3 points. Which row was the mole in the group photo for episode 2? Within the back row, which was Ellie, Tim, Klaas, Rupp, and Remy, or the front row, which is Airen, Taka, Marjolein, Cecile, and Anamika?
I guess back row.
Interesting. You guys got anything else you want to say about this episode?
No.
Anything from you, Saunders?
Nope. 'Cause I missed out on the whole challenge, so that's it for me.
Do you want to eulogize Airen in any way, shape, or form?
Airen. She didn't get the worst elimination montage ever for a first boot, thanks to being in for 2 episodes. I really thought she was the mole, but clearly I'm as lost as she was.
Yeah. I mean, I just have 2 words for her.
She gone?
She gone.
She gone!
And on that note, thank you for listening to our VS Mole 2016 recap. We'll be back next week to continue the hunt for an old mole in the Dominican Republic. Don't forget you can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram where we're at RTV Warriors, or you can email us and contact at rtvwarriors.com. Logan is on the artist formerly known as Twitter at LuxWaki. Bindles is a grooming capper, and I'm MJ Harmstone. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/rtvwarriors. Thank you as always to Marika for the subtitles. We will see you next week.
Peace out and just chill till the next flavoring.
Sadly, the old mole's head has had complaints.